Hello and welcome to another episode of Conquering the JavaScript Interview, where we help you swap your confusion for confidence. Today we're talking about a swap num function and how to swap values without losing your sanity. So sit tight, grab a cup of JavaScript, and let's swap some digits. Nums together, whatever, right? So this one is going to be short and sweet, but is a cool technique to know how to do that you'd probably never consider if you're a newbie developer, either from our course or from your own development journey, however long, short, or wide that breadth might be. Swap num, write a function that takes two integer arguments, a and b, and swaps their values without using a third variable to hold a value. Again, something we do all the time where we simply use a quickly declared or initialized third variable to hold something, swap this one, take that one, swap it back, no problem. But what if we had a lot of memory constraints? What if we had to swap numbers without the ability to do that? So for example, if we call swap num with 5 and 8, how do we get them to swap from a and b of a5 and b8 to a8 and b of 5? Can it handle negative numbers? Can it handle mixed numbers of positive and negative integers? We are about to find out together with this cool little algorithm. So once again, my newbies and developers out there that anyone that's encountered this before can probably already answer it fairly quickly. I'm not going to be using any kind of weird bitwise stuff. If there's interest in that, let me know in the comments below. Be forewarned that any kind of bitwise stuff is simply magic to me, no matter how much I read about it. So if you want to see a solution, my explanation to you will basically be like, I don't know, it just worked though. But I can show you how to solve this one with some basic arithmetic, and it'll make you the cool kid on the block in an interview if they ever happen to ask you something like this, or you find a way to shoehorn it in because you just want to show off, right? Okie dokie. So this one, how are we going to think about it? So imagine we have two boxes that happen to be called, I don't know, A and B. I don't know where I got those from. With each of those boxes having some items inside. And you want to swap the items between the two boxes, but without bringing out a third box C in order to temporarily hold all the items from a box as you swap them. So first thing you're going to do is open up both boxes and count out all the items. Let's say you find that there were 3 items in box A and 5 items in box B. Next, what you're going to do is take all the items from box A into box B. So now box B contains the items from both boxes. So it has a total of 8. Then you count the number of items that originally were in box B, which were 5. You subtract that and add them to box A. So now box A contains the original 5 items from B, and box B contains the original 3 items from box A. So by using this process of adding and subtracting numbers in each box, you were able to swap the contents of the two boxes without having to resort to going out to Home Depot to buy a third box to put them in. Similarly, our swap num function over here is going to be using the values of A and B are swapped by performing arithmetic on them without having to use another third variable. So let's dive on in and show you how this magic is going to work. No return values for this one, so I couldn't run much of tests on it. We're simply going to visualize with some console logs here. So without further ado, let us do so. Also use some quick ES6 shorthand to generate a quick looking console log so we can see what it looks like here. We're going to call swap num with our original values of 5 and 8. There we go. So our before A5, B8 is lining up as we expect. Let's go ahead and see how we can use some arithmetic to swap them out. We are going to say that B is going to be assigned the value of B minus A. We're going to take the combination of the two and subtract A out of it. We are then going to say A will be the combination of A plus B, adding all the items. So this is where we took out from B, whatever its contents of A were going to be. A is where we combine all the items in one box. And then from B, we will then subtract out what we had in A to swap it around. So now what we have to do is console log after. And let's see what A and B end up looking like now. And there you go. Let me clear the console so we can see it a bit nicer. Boop. Clear, and there. So yeah, like I said, dang it, stop it. Like I was saying, before the values are swapped, A is 5 and B is 8. We take the items from B, subtract how many we calculated from A. Again, by this point, you've already opened both the boxes and taken a look at them. So B has now subtracted whatever A is going to have. A now becomes the contents of both B and A, right? And then from A, we subtract the contents of what was in B to put it back into B, which means we've now eventually swapped them around. So that's difficult to say out loud. And again, it's one of those things where you would memorize this and kind of sit there and pretend to contemplate in your interview and go for it. But again, the logic is we calculate what's inside both the boxes, take out the content, like we basically would take out the contents of what would amount to A from B and reassign it to itself. So now it represents the value of what A would take from B in B. That means we then can add that to A to get what B's contents are into A, and then we take out what A's contents are from B, subtracting B from it to get what the contents to be in B, and that basically is what swaps them around right there. That was like that, putting it all into one box and then calculating the difference from them to move it back to the other box, right? So that's what that analogy was trying to get at. So again, we log the initial values right quick just so we could take a look at it visually. Then it calculates that new value for B by subtracting it from A. Remember, this is a reassignment of B itself. So it takes the current value of B, subtracts A from it. It represents the difference between the original values of A and B. Then the next line of code is calculates the new value of A by adding the updated value of B into it, which is A plus B. It represents the sum of the original values of A and B. And then it calculates our new value for B by subtracting the updated value of B from the updated value of A, because we've calculated them out, right? And then that gets us the original value of A, which we assign to B. And that's how we swap the variables around. Then we log afterwards what it looks like. And like I said, that's going to be short and sweet, all there is to it. Let's take a look at our other tests here by console logging to see if it can correctly swap two negative numbers now. -2 and -5 become -5 and 2, so we have effectively swapped those as well. Coming over yonder to can it handle one negative and one positive integer. Always a fun test to take a look at here. And yeah, we get -4, 2 to -4. So no weird signage or swapping things like that. So yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of arithmetic magic, but nevertheless, it's a cool technique to know. I mean, in terms of big O, it's an O of 1 no matter what we do. Let's take a look at my diagram here. Big O of 1 is just a flat line that goes across the bottom in terms of input length to operations that have to be done, simply because it's a fixed set of arithmetic operations of two input values. So regardless of how big the size of the input values get, the number of operations performed by the function doesn't change based on the size of the input. So the complexity of the function is constant. It's just 3 calculations that are done no matter how big the input numbers are. It doesn't magically add more calculative steps like an iterative loop would do, for example. So the function has a time complexity of O of 1, which means it takes constant time to execute regardless of how big the input is. So it's a very optimal time complexity, that's for sure. So again, you might be wondering, Luke, why would I take the time to even bother memorizing this bit of arithmetic here and remembering that box analogy and whatnot? You know, swapping variables without creating temporary variables is a technique that can be used to save memory and improve performance, particularly in cases where the variable size is large and swapping is performed frequently. So I don't know where you're going to encounter it, but when you do, you can probably thank me for it, because being able, especially if you're in a very memory intensive area, imagine working on an old school iPhone, like, there's a place here in Birmingham that did like RF tags. Yeah, that they would tag inventory at a construction site, so a foreman or manager could know where all the 2x4s are going in that construction site for tight inventory management. But imagine being a foreman driving a pickup truck down here in Alabama when the weather's 95, 99, 105 degrees outside, and you have like an old iPhone in a thick plastic or rubber OtterBox case. That thing's battery life probably isn't that great. It's probably not the newest and next greatest generation of phones, so your memory space is limited. So in instances like that, where your application is going to be running on older devices that are not in ideal conditions, then you probably really have to take into consideration optimization and memory performance, which is where something like this could really come into play by more advanced developers, or you, the newbie, learning how to weasel your way into that role by lying that you know how to do this correctly. So swapping using arithmetic operations doesn't require that allocation of that temporary extra variable. Instead, they're just updated using, well, some math, which is relatively fast and efficient no matter what you do. Now, I agree this makes it way harder to read and harder to understand. So this is only a technique when performance is of a key issue or you got asked in an interview. Right? So as always, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful in our journey to become a better developer. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this insanity, and if you want to see that bitwise way to do it, let me know in the comments down below and I'll do so. Remember, constructive and positive comments are always welcome here, so let's keep the discussion going and help each other improve our coding skills. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.